Okay, so what we're going to do first is I'm just going to ask all of you guys to introduce yourselves. Please don't be too worried. I'll give you 30 seconds to a minute. Let's go down. We'll start with you, Jay.
All right, hi everybody. I know a lot of folks in the room, but I'm here with my MasterCard hat on today. And I'm Group Head SVP for the Media Solutions Group at MasterCard. So we are, our responsibility is to commercialize the transaction asset for all of you. So we sit on top of a solution suite that looks at planning, targeting, and measurement.
Hi, I'm Brian Spencer. I'm a media director at Geometry Global. Geometry Global is a shopper marketing agency, part of WPP, and we're all about inspiring people to buy well. So it's about doing retail-specific campaigns. We're happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. Aleck Schleider. I am from Videology. I manage data and analytics for our clients, supporting strategies around the application of data for cross-channel targeting and measurement.
Hi everyone, I'm Diaz Nesamoney. I'm the founder and CEO of Jivox. We provide a technology platform for personalization of ads and creative. So we plug into all kinds of data, apply algorithms on it, and generate thousands of different variations of relevant creative for individuals.
I got one. Thank you. So just to handicap this, we've got data, shopper marketing, TV and video, dynamic creative, or real-time creative. I want to start with you, Jay. The topic here is cross-channel consumer marketing, which is essentially how do we take data from disparate resources across multiple channels, multiple devices, and unify that against one customer ID and then activate in the marketplace. What advice can you give to advertisers, and what is MasterCard doing to help advertisers along that journey?
Yeah, great. So I think what we do is we're a great starting point and complement to understand audience and people that are actually shopping and look at their actual real behavior. They say you are what you spend. So think about that and think about what you can do in terms of both historical behaviors but also using data science to build propensity models to predict future behaviors. And then you can actually measure real ROI. So I think one of the challenges that we're all thinking about as a business is how do we be more holistic and how do we get beyond just measuring process, right? We talk to the end customer a lot about this, and measure real outcomes, and don't do it on a delayed basis, but do it so it could give us insights as we're doing our work.
So, obviously the challenge is to collect the data and unify the data, but that doesn't mean anything unless it's activated. And so, Aleck, I want to just talk to you about, Videology as a platform for using data across online video, but also TV. So can you give us some examples or some advice to advertisers on how they can take the data they have about their consumers or their potential consumers and activate that in real time across online video and television?
Sure. So we work with the likes of MasterCard data as well as a variety of other data sets. And in today's world, the understanding of a consumer's behaviors is very relevant, but to your point, how do you activate against it? And so it really is a combination of combining behaviors with consumption. And so understanding a consumer's consumption across TV or digital video or a variety of other channels and being able to apply that data in a meaningful way to really be able to say, we know this audience and we know where this audience is consuming their content.
And when you say consumption, you mean the consumption of content and advertising, not the consumption of products and services.
Exactly, the consumption of content, right? So there is TV-based panels. Obviously, in the digital world, you're seeing the amount of frequency given cookies and device IDs, and so all that data is coming into a single platform, and being able to take a single audience and understand that consumption across TV consumption, ad exposure, and on the same time being able to see how they're being exposed in the digital world. Those data sets exist today. And they exist today based on panels and samples, but when you measure the outcomes, they're real, right? These are real deterministic outcomes of looking at an individual audience, whether it be purchase-based data, whether it be ad exposure. Recognizing that there's the TV curve, there's a large set of populations, specifically the younger audiences, that are being less exposed on television, but are consuming a lot more content on digital. Just even recognizing and how to apply data in that manner is very important. So in today's world, we're seeing a lot of brands take their first-party data or third-party data based on purchase-based behavior, CRM, whatever it might be, and apply that to the understanding of frequency and ad exposure across both TV and or digital. And so those data sets can sit today in a platform and be applied. And the best outcome really is, what we see typically is, who's the audience, right? And at what level of reach and frequency? Reach and frequency still are the matter that we see the most for driving brand lift, intent, and sales. Recognizing you got to target the right audience first, but then you got to target them with the right reach and frequency.
Okay, so we've talked about data and how to join that up and how to apply it across things like video, TV, how to measure it properly, and we'll get back into that because I think measurement is really important. I often say to people within GroupM and clients that we've spent the first 20 years, or most of the first 20 years of digital, figuring out how to gather data to create better consumer profiles to target the right ad to the right person at the right time. We've all heard that a million times, right? Unfortunately, we haven't spent all that much time on how to generate better creative, about how to infuse data into the creative process. So Diaz, you founded a company based on this principle of how can we use data to improve the creative output. Can you talk a little bit about how Jivox uses data and how some advertisers are using that to improve consumer engagement?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the notion of improving creative for quite some time meant make it look better. And we fought that battle for a while, and we just hit a wall. So what we've been focusing on at Jivox has been saying make it relevant, right? Make it specific and meaningful, not to a broad audience, but to an individual. Use the example of the toaster breaking. For the person whose toaster broke, all they care about is I'm in market for a toaster. So what we're really doing is distilling the data or integrating the data across many different places, because again, it's not about what kind of person they are, but the fact that something happened in their lives that triggers them to think of a toaster. So it's multiple sets of data integrated together, tied to an individual. And then the question is, how do you scale the process of delivering relevant creative? Now, the old way was you just said, well, if I've got 5 audiences, I'll have 5 creatives. But if you have 5 million people that you're trying to reach, and each of them thinks differently and is ready at a different time, how do you construct 5 million different creatives? So we said, let's approach it through technology. Let's use a CMS system to have all the content, and let's assemble these creatives on the fly relevant to each individual. So that's how we approach the problem. We sort of throw away the old notions of how creative is built and said, let's dynamically build a creative for an individual using the data.
How is that different than sort of DCO 1.0, which is relatively old? In our business is an old technology.
Yes.
It's 5 or 6 years old, and you're a new company and you're taking a new approach, and maybe you don't even refer to it as DCO.
We don't.
But how is it different than? I always call sort of retargeting a party trick, right? I put something in my cart on eBay, and then I'm out in the wild on the internet, and lo and behold, that thing appears. It's sort of amazing and also become so ubiquitous that we need to move on. How are you helping us move on from just the thing I put in my cart is now following me around the internet?
Exactly, and that's the ad we don't want to see. So DCO has been around for quite some time, and the early versions of it was, okay, I've got 10 creatives, I'm going to rotate them, I'm going to collect data and pick the best one. We've been doing that for years and years. Then some technologies came along saying, what if we knew what the user browsed and we'll show them the product? The problem with those technologies is they didn't look at data in a holistic way. They just looked at that one data point of they looked at a product. Why do you see ads for something you just bought? What purpose do they serve? Nothing. But the problem is the technology can only look at one fact, which is that you looked at the product and forgets the fact that you actually purchased it. So what we're doing is we're saying, don't look at one piece of data, look at all the other pieces of data. Okay, they've purchased it. If we know that they purchased it, we use machine learning to figure out recommended products, and we say, let's show them similar products. And again, this is not
So it's
new.
not the product you've already bought or the product you looked at and
it's
potentially
stuff
rejected.
that you should
It's
be
stuff,
buying if you bought this product.
Makes sense.
If somebody bought a toaster, sell them, bread, whatever to toast.
Okay. Let's come back. I want to get Brian involved in the conversation, but I now understand how it's different. Brian, you're in the shopper marketing business, the services business, but you're helping advertisers with their shopper marketing. Sometimes that's a data-rich environment. Often that's not a very data-rich environment because you're dealing with people that are in front of a shelf, in a store. So, how are you advising clients on how to use data and how to learn from everything that's happening in the digital world in a physical location and improve the shopper marketing experience?
Yeah, so sometimes it involves having to create data. Hey, look at that. Speaking of magical. So sometimes we have to create data where there isn't any data that exists. And so you can use geofencing technology now to geofence around retail locations. So we've done that recently for Purina, where we were serving moment-based messaging to people where we know based on their purchase behavior that they're probably at the bottom of their bag of dog food, and it's time for them to do a stock-up trip at their regular pet specialty retailer that they go to. And so we're able to drive them to that retailer and then give them a reminder of that special offer when they enter the retail location. So we are able to create, in many cases, data around physical locations where it doesn't.
And what about
exist.
joining it up on the other side? We know that there are solutions for gathering data at retail. We have one of those solutions within WPP, within Kantar, which is Shopcom, a shopper marketing database. But are advertisers getting smarter about not only connecting the shopper marketing experience to the digital or even offline advertising experience, but then to measuring that appropriately in terms of who's actually buying goods in a brick and mortar shop?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's the space that we work in shopper marketing every day, is understanding how those consumers differ from retail channel to retail channel. And there's very rich data available, even from partners like Triad, to give us better insights and to then craft unique touch points and messages for each of those consumers. And that is the challenge, is making sure everybody on the team understands that we are going to need different kinds of messages, not just for the precision level of the targeting, but horizontally across all the different retail channels.
Now, Jay, coming back to you, I mean that's a sort of a good segue to MasterCard. MasterCard's relatively new to the data business, right? I mean, not necessarily data management, but sort of helping advertisers through data insights, through selling segmentation. How do you see the way consumers pay evolving, and what's MasterCard's role in that? Every time I go to Starbucks, I don't take out my MasterCard, unfortunately. I take out my Starbucks app and I pay that way, and I use Apple Pay, and I'm increasingly using my mobile device. So how does MasterCard play in that space, and how do you continue to offer advertisers more insight around these behaviors?
Sure. What I was going to say on the last piece we were talking about is, don't forget 94% of all purchases are not online. They're offline. They're in store, right? So I think a lot of us that come from digital side are talking about, hey, what's the impact of digital on offline and how we stitch that together. So I think that's an important piece. In terms of overall MasterCard, our Chief Innovation Officer talks a lot about the Internet of Things. And I think this group says, hey, every device in the Internet of Things is an advertising device. And we say every device in Internet of Things is a payment device, right? So I think a lot of what you're seeing is the line between advertising and commerce is collapsing. And I think that should be a good thing for all of us. but it aligns with this more kind of consumer-driven world. So I think that's what we all drive towards.
Do consumers now identify? I mean, do they identify with brand, like with payment systems? Are they loyal to payment systems, or they just want to take all the friction out of it and take something out of their pocket and pay? And is that a big threat?
Well,
to,
I think
to
both.
MasterCard's-
I mean, look, you look at, if you want to talk about MasterCard advertising on our priceless campaign, that's 20 years old. Okay, that's about driving consumer preference and ease of pay, right? And we talk about that pervasively. And if you want to go really big, we talk about MasterCard and its role in bringing the next 500 million consumers online. I mean, into the world. So half the adults in the world are unbanked. They don't have a financial mechanism, right? So it's not just, hey, what's current share of payments, but only 15% of things globally that are bought with a payment mechanism, with a credit or debit card. So we have a lot of greenfield work to do.
So just coming back to the topic, the topic is how do you engage consumers across multiple channels? Still within GroupM, about 40% of the media that we buy on behalf of our advertisers is television, right?
Yeah.
And so we're talking today here about digital and the advancements in digital, and digital has grown precipitously over the last 20 years and continues to do so, but television is still a great reach vehicle. So Aleck, you had mentioned measurement. I want to come back to that. There's a lot of news around total audience measurement and Nielsen's role in that. Those are third-party metrics trying to project statistics across a broader population. Are we destined to wind up with sort of a new version of Nielsen, or are there better ways, given all of this data, to measure performance outcomes across all channels, particularly around video and TV?
Sure. I mean, I think Nielsen role still is around just understanding ratings and understanding GRPs and demographics across devices and channels. I look at measurement in terms of understanding the effectiveness of offline sales across TV and digital. Shopcom is a perfect example. The ability to use Shopcom data tied to a household, working with the likes of a potentially ComScore, and then obviously being able to pass exposure data from a digital format to Shopcom IDs and measure offline sales. That's happening today. And so the dependency of what's being measured really is based on, are you looking at reach and frequency, which probably is still Nielsen's world, that's what they own, versus are you trying to understand the effectiveness of advertising at a household and potentially individual level for driving offline sales? So I would say there's two worlds to look at.
Well, I mean, I think the answer is no. I think we're not. I mean, I think that's what you're saying in a very polite way. But
yeah.
If I were to answer the question, and I have my own question, I don't think that we are destined to necessarily have to rely on Nielsen because
Totally
of
agree.
what you said. I mean, WPP has invested in ComScore for that very reason, is to try to push the ball forward on measurement. And I think we have to end up in a world where we're using actual performance data to measure the effectiveness of TV, not Nielsen. And obviously, Videology is a great partner within that. I want to come back to Diaz for a moment, because you talked about some of the technology behind how you create a better ad experience. But we have a lot of clients in the room that have, and WPP obviously has an interest in creative agencies. How should creative agencies think about real-time creative and using data and technology to improve the creative experience? Is that a threat to creative agencies, or should they be embracing that?
I think they should be embracing it. I think it's taken perhaps longer than I certainly thought, because this is technology for creative, after all. But I think the way I think they should think about it is, first of all, data becomes part of the equation when you're doing creative. It's hard to just say, I'm going to do creative and then I'm not going to worry about data or media. I'll worry about that later. So incorporating that thinking, and data to them perhaps just means audiences or micro segments of audiences, small sets of people that think and behave differently. The technology allows them actually to focus more on the strategy for creative and what the data means and what these audiences mean, as opposed to the rote production and building of ads. Nobody likes building 5,000 versions of the same ad where just the line of copy is different. That's just work that frankly is rote, and also I think clients increasingly don't want to pay for because there's automation that can help solve that. So I think this kind of technology solves the production problem while at the same time making the creative data-enabled, data-driven, and therefore relevant to those individuals it's being served to.
Yeah, please.
This is just a good example. One of the things we're seeing on the measurement side of the house is clients like Videology moving this into the optimization piece too. And so instead of after the fact saying, sorry, we measured it and bad news, it's, hey, we can look at that activity for any type of segmentation you're doing. And the example when Diaz was talking, I was thinking about was for a home improvement in our instance where we saw great lift, but if you broke it down to creative size, the lift went from 0 to 28%, okay? So now think of all the ways you look at segmentation and how do we bring that in so we get the benefit up front?
Brian, I have one more question for you, and then I'm going to go down we're going to wrap up. I'm just going to ask all of you what the coolest thing at CES is, so start to prepare your answer. But Brian, there's been a revolution in my house, which is the Amazon Echo. My kids absolutely love it. And one of their favorite holiday presents was I got them an Echo Dot. We have other Echoes, but I got them an Echo Dot for their room. And one of the things they're fascinated with is their shopping list. And so my kids have a shopping list that they keep, with Alexa. And it's got real things on it, and then it's got sort of like dirty words on it also. They're small. But talking about the shopping experience coming into the home, I mean, what is the impact of Google Home? What is the impact of the Amazon Echo on the shopper marketing experience? And how do you advise your clients to take advantage of that new technology in the home?
Yeah, so as marketers and agency people, I think we've all been struggling with consumers becoming a little bit more entrenched in their shopping habits. And I think some of this technology has the potential to further entrench people in those shopping habits, right? So, when my refrigerator is eventually, auto-replenishing my pantry, it's going to be harder to disrupt that purchase decision when it's just sort of becomes a routine thing that my appliances are doing for me. So, so we're going to have to think about that as marketers and agency people. How do we disrupt that journey? Theoretically, the lifetime value of those shoppers goes up as well as they become more entrenched. So you could be putting more effort into converting them. But we also, I'm going to give a shout out. I'm representing the shopper marketing side of the business here, but in the spirit of horizontality, I will give due credit to the brand marketing side of the business. It's going to become more and more important for us to have strong brands so that our pantries and our refrigerators don't just become like commodities, right? So it's all going to have to work together to disrupt that rote habit that these devices will
Good.
do.
Makes
for us.
sense. Okay, we're out of time, but I just want to, if everybody here only had 10 minutes to go to the show floor, what's the coolest thing at CES, Jay Sears?
Well, I'd say the broadest thing is just Internet of Things and that collapsing line between advertising and commerce. So I think of some of the things MasterCard's doing either in the navigation system with GM or on a Samsung refrigerator. So, and what that means for all of us.
Way to plug your own company in that. Impressive, seriously impressive. You've done this before.
I think where artificial intelligence is headed in terms of creating new kinds of data to target shoppers. So, a lot of what we've been doing is focusing on transactional data, but it looks like artificial intelligence is going to be able to help us target people based on psychological profiles, based on real-time emotional state, based on reading people's facial expressions and that kind of thing. So I think that's going to open up a whole new window of targeting data for us.
Good.
Yeah, on the data side, some recent capabilities where data can now be applied for over-the-top targeting, right? And so coming from my world and to seeing how quickly content is shifting to over the top. The ability to one-to-one addressable targeting in those systems is very exciting for me.
Yeah, I think that the coolest thing is virtual reality and chatbots, because I think it represents the beginning of personalized media in many ways, where you get to see something very personalized to you. It's early days in the technology, and I keep thinking, how does advertising fit into that?
Good. Well, guys, thank you very much. Jay, Brian, Aleck, Diaz, I really appreciate your time. Thanks very much.